Brought to you by Penguin.
Reframing Blackness, written and read by me, Alayo Akinkugbe. For my grandparents, Katsina Saratu and Moses Adekoejo Majekodumi, Janet Oladuni and Oludolapo Ibukun Akinkugbe, and my parents, Folake and Dayo. Forwards ever, backwards never. Preface: Reframing Blackness. What is black about the history of art? When we look for blackness in Western art, who and what do we find? These are the animating questions of Reframing Blackness. To reframe blackness is to look again at existing works of art and narratives in art history, adopting an approach to the field that foregrounds blackness. In a sense, reframing blackness is a way of seeing. To see in this way is to see blackness first, acknowledging its position before looking at what else is positioned in its vicinity. It is a way of seeing which I have become accustomed to. It is how I experience art history and have operated within the art world. My childhood was spent in Nigeria, a country where, by virtue of it being the largest black nation on earth, thoughts about blackness and race were not prevalent in my everyday experiences. I did not think about my own blackness often, until I went to boarding school in Kent, England, at age 11. At my new school, I was part of a small black minority. When I began, I was one of 2 black students in my year. In the 7 years which I spent there, the school had no black teachers. Going to school in England took race and racism from being a distant and occasional consideration to a gnawing, ever-present part of my existence. I had gone from living in one environment where my blackness had never been something which made me different, to another in which it became the defining aspect of my identity. It is important to acknowledge that my perspective is one of a person who experienced an abrupt shift in understanding the meaning of blackness in different contexts. It is heavily influenced by my movement from one country with a primarily black population to another with a primarily white one. Because I attended that boarding school for 7 years, I am partly the product of an environment where the worldview of a specific demographic of privileged white people, note, this refers to privileged white people and not to white privilege, was the norm. I needed to understand it in order to get through school and my teenage years. It was an environment in which I found myself again at university, when I went to Cambridge to study for a BA in History of Art in 2018. These settings, where I was frequently the only black person in a room, have undoubtedly shaped my hyper-awareness of blackness and where it is positioned in relation to whiteness. My choice to approach art history in this way, seeing and highlighting blackness first, is partly a response to its absence throughout my experience of secondary school and university. This approach is the inverse of the education that I received at the British institutions where I studied. Blackness and black people were either afterthoughts on my school and university curricula or totally absent. Now, as an adult, highlighting the creativity of black individuals and acknowledging their contributions to the history of art is the focus of my career, in the hope of helping to denormalize this absence in schools, universities, and museums. Reframing Blackness has come about partly because of the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020. The years post-2020 have seen attempts across Western cultural organizations to acknowledge the widespread, systematic nature of anti-black racism, and, in some instances, to repair some of its damage. In the art world, this has come in the form of exhibitions and the championing of black artists by galleries and institutions, which had hitherto not engaged much with black people and our histories. There has been a black cultural wave of sorts, with increased opportunities for black creatives, writers, poets, chefs, artists, and designers. The amplification of my own voice, culminating in this book, is part of this wave. My approach to these subjects was in place before this sudden global reckoning, but the attention it has garnered is a direct result of the events of 2020. For decades, art historians, curators, and writers have dedicated their careers to making known the contributions of black artists, within and beyond the Western world, to the history.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?